Eamon, you stay with me. I want to bring in Michael O'Hanlon, Foreign Policy Director of the Brookings Institution. He was with us on Friday, and he's with us once again. It's nice to have you back on our program. Your reaction to what you've heard already?
It's encouraging. I think that if nothing else, we can begin to be a little bit relieved that Friday's meeting in Alaska did not bring President Trump all the way over into Putin's camp somehow. A lot of people were worried about that, given Putin's history of being able to sort of mesmerize the American president. But I really felt that that was unlikely, based on the fact that Trump's come a long way in his understanding of this war and how he allocates responsibility. So today was a reaffirmation of that. But this discussion of the United States being willing to be engaged in some kind of backstop to Ukraine's long-term security is really promising for those of us who believe in such structures and such commitments. And I don't quite know yet what it means. It sounds like no one quite yet knows what it means, but it's a very positive, promising step. It's nowhere near the end of the war. And if there is a trilateral, it's not going to be a success on day one. But I think we're starting to see some pieces at least coalesce around where they'll have to be eventually.
What do you make, Michael, of what appears to be, I don't want to call it a full-blown disagreement or a point of contention, but certainly differing views on the idea of whether a ceasefire is needed to take the next step?
I think it's an important debate, but it will become less important with time, and here's why. Because if there is no reasonable effort by Putin to end this war fairly soon, and I doubt there will be, then this whole notion that we should try to negotiate peace will just seem to everyone like a play for time. And Trump's pretty good at sniffing out that kind of tactical ploy. And so, again, I have more confidence in the American president than some of the strategic community. I think that when he says he would like a peace plan, he's essentially saying to Putin, go ahead, give it a try. But if you don't have some serious movement by the fall, don't expect me to forego sanctions or additional punishment. That's what I hope it means. We'll have to see.
Let's examine that a little bit further, if we could. Coming out of Anchorage, there was, I think, a high degree of criticism over the rolling out of the red carpet, quite literally, for President Putin, the way that he was greeted by President Trump, and for that matter, whether he even should have been invited to put his feet on U.S. soil, never mind being invited into the presidential limousine. What I heard around the table just now from these other leaders did not sound like gratuitous praise of the president's efforts to try and get some sort of solution to this problem, that they seem to believe that what the president did by meeting with Putin, whether it was in Alaska or wherever it would be, if nothing else, restarted a dialogue that could get you closer to a finish line here. Can you give me your thoughts on that?
I think your theory is perfectly plausible, but this is one of those situations where the proof is in the pudding. I mean, whether this was too much of a concession is going to depend on where the diplomacy goes now. And if it winds up going nowhere, and it seems like we treated a war criminal or an indicted war criminal and mass murderer very well in American territory, then I don't think it's going to redound to President Trump's benefit as a peacemaker. But if this somehow leads to a multi-step process that, however ugly, however zigzaggy, winds up in a better place, then I think people will say maybe we have to hold our noses and acknowledge that it was a tolerable way to do diplomacy with a bad guy.
Eamon, I'll come back to you on just the overall optics of how today has unfolded. What is an entirely different optical event from what we witnessed 6 months ago. From a tonal perspective, there's just no doubt that there was a way more conciliatory tone, much more cordial and warm greeting from the president this time. It would be notable, too, that when Zelenskyy was berated by the vice president in the Oval Office, yes, Vice President Vance was in there, as were other members of top U.S. leadership, but it was the presidents who were speaking to one another and to the media.
Yeah, and you saw today that Vice President Vance did not speak in that Oval Office session and did not speak here at the gathering of world leaders. Obviously, he's a number two, and that table was for number ones only. And so that was an interesting change of personnel, I guess you could say. I think if we stopped here and there was no more news today, this White House would say this has been a tremendous success today. Friday, they would say, was a success because the president got Vladimir Putin talking and got him to agree to this idea of security guarantees on one level or another. Today, they will say, is a success because you had the president convening these world leaders, showing united front with the Western world, and pushing for peace, which is his main goal here. So what we'll watch for is the language and the rhetoric from these world leaders after this meeting today as they depart the White House. We'll see what else they have to say and see if they can put some more meat on the bones in terms of what exactly these security guarantees will be and what the U.S. role in particular will be. That has the potential to be very controversial here in the United States for the president, particularly among his political base.
I think that's the point that, at least part I was trying to make with Michael O'Hanlon, is the praise that you heard from these other world leaders to the president in the room felt more genuine, if you will. I mean, hearing the head of NATO talk about being really excited at the possibility of being able to end this war and make some kind of deal out of it, and the other world leaders who were there telling the president directly that whatever his outreach and whatever form it was going to be to Vladimir Putin has had some kind of positive impact on them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the right read here. I mean, these leaders do see this as a moment where, the president has, shaken up the Yahtzee table and reset the game pieces, and now they have the possibility to maybe find a way to get to a deal. As complicated as that is, and you heard the president acknowledging just how complicated and daunting it can be, but maybe a glimmer of optimism here in what has been a very bleak and tragic story so far.
Eamon, we'll see how the rest of the day unfolds. Appreciate your reporting as always. Our thanks to Michael O'Hanlon of Brookings as well. We'll monitor the events out of the White House today. We're obviously watching what's happening here on Wall Street.